Welcome to Car Fee Conversations. This is a podcast where we talk about making the most of St. Pete without the use of a car. I'm Domenico,
And I'm Sumitra.
and we're joined today by Lara Wojan. Hi, Lara.
Hello.
And you're here to talk about the Suncoast World Day of Remembrance. But before we get into that, we have a sort of fun, casual segment that we like to do. And we are going to be sort of quizzing you on your bike life.
Okay.
So, Mitra, you want to get us started?
Yes, sure. These are kind of very general questions about like how did you get into biking, and how do you do it as a commuter that uses bikes to commute in the city? So the first question is, when did you learn how to bike?
I don't even remember learning how to ride my bike. I was so young. I would have been, before school probably, but I mean, I've been riding a bike since I was a child. Where I grew up in Canada, you could easily and safely ride your bike everywhere. So I rode to school and high school as well. And then when I started university, I was studying systems engineering at my local university, and that was an easy 20-minute bike ride or an hour walk, depending on how I wanted to get to school that day. I would arrive to school so happy and refreshed and in a great mood, and I figured, and this lent a lot to my success. So I decided to just continue doing it. It felt great. And so I was a bike commuter throughout my career. I worked across the country and I've studied across the country. So I've lived in Canada. My hometown is called Regina. It's a city about the size of St. Petersburg. It doesn't have a huge amount of like protected bike infrastructure, but it's safe. People don't drive too fast. There's a nice park and trails and stuff. And then I moved to Vancouver and Victoria, which is kind of a game changer. They've got great bike infrastructure. I did a law degree at UBC, and it was fun to ride my bike to school every day. I loved it. And then when I worked in that city, I was doing a 40-kilometer round trip commute to my job in South Vancouver, which I didn't have to go to the gym. I didn't have to spend anything on gas. It was wonderful. And then those days where it rained and stuff, I took the bus and the train. So, it can be done. It just needs a little bit of, safe infrastructure. I've lived in other cities too that haven't been quite so friendly, but we'll get into that.
I learned how to bike when I was, I think, 3 or something like that. And my parents were really big on me learning how to bike. They were just like, it's just useful skill to have. And it's like, okay. And I had a school bus that took me to school. It was only like a 10-minute drive. And I grew up in Mumbai. So, it was just funny. Like I had no one in my school that got dropped off to the school in a car. Either people walked, they biked, or they took the school bus. And then there were like rare occasions when I was late or something, my father would like drop me off. But it was truly like once a year, if at all. So yeah, I totally understand just having like a safe infrastructure to bike. And also just reduced speeds can help so much to like facilitate that too.
Yeah, I really think that, if a child feels comfortable cycling in their community, they learn autonomy and freedom and gain the confidence to explore their communities. Keeps them, well, maybe it keeps them out of trouble. We'll see.
So you still commute by bike today, Lara?
Actually, I do not. I don't feel safe riding my bike here in Pinellas County. There's a few areas like on the trail that are safe and separated, but the infrastructure here is inadequate in my view, and I don't feel safe.
That's pretty that's a very powerful statement and disappointing. But I hear that. I hear that, especially if you live further out away from the downtown area. Um, yeah, I can see that being a problematic. And there's a lot of new people moving to St. Pete, and I think that makes driving more complicated. I've seen people run red lights. I've seen people just not really understand the rules of how to safely drive. So yeah, I can see how biking can be scary sometimes.
And it also feels like just the speeds on some of our roads are like just insane. Like, so when I lived in St. Pete, my partner still lives there, but our house is kind of just 5 minutes south of downtown. Uh, it's about like 2 miles south of downtown, and the speed on MLK just outside of our neighborhood is like 45 miles per hour, which seems insane to have like a street that cuts through all these like residential neighborhoods and that borders like Boyd Hill and like the Lake Magori Park to have like that much of a speed. It's so insane, and that's just like one example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I live in Treasure Island and Gulf Boulevard. I
Mm-hmm.
see cyclists on there all the time, but
Yeah,
people get hit a lot
yeah.
and drivers go way too fast. So I prefer to, keep myself intact, and I just don't trust the drivers out there, and I don't trust the infrastructure, unfortunately.
What's
Um,
your, on a more positive note, what's your favorite place to bike? I'll ask that question.
I really like taking the Pinellas Trail and then going down towards Clam Bayou. That's a really cool part of the
mm-hmm.
city. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my favorite.
and that's the Skyway Trail, right? Like
Mhm.
it cuts off from Pinellas Trail. Yeah, I have. Yeah, I really need to go down there. I have done it once, and it's like, oh, this is so beautiful.
Going to
It's lovely.
Gulfport too is
Yeah.
also a lot of fun. I like Gulfport.
What bike infrastructure improvements do you want to see just in the city and around the county? I know there's like a lot we need to do, but what are some of the first things that you would start with or do you want to see?
Um, well, considering I live in Treasure Island, I want Gulf Boulevard to be slowed down. I want them to have narrower driving lanes, maybe even put them on a road diet and take away one of those travel lanes, and then install protected bike infrastructure with an actual
Mhm.
physical concrete barrier between where the bikes go and the cars. I would love to see shade trees along there, make it more pleasant. I'm an economist at heart, and I think that it would be a huge boon for the local businesses along Gulf Boulevard to have it calm down and,
Yeah.
treat it like a street, not a road. And I think that Treasure Island's, income for all the businesses would go
Hmm.
up. And same with St. Pete Beach as well, and the other beaches. But I'm focused on Treasure Island, so I really want to see
Yeah.
Gulf Boulevard have their speeds reduced. In addition, I think Central Avenue, it's great when you're at downtown. Just extend that whole theme
Yeah.
all the
Hmm.
way to the Treasure Island Causeway. I don't see a huge amount of vehicle traffic on there anyway. If they could repurpose one lane in each direction for a protected bike lane, we'd be gold. Well on our way. Then I would
Yes.
be a bicycle commuter.
What's your advice for someone who's trying to be maybe trying to become a bike commuter?
Choose your routes carefully. Try and pick, back roads, residential streets with not a
Hmm.
lot of traffic, even if it's not like a direct route. I think if you're just starting out, going on those less traveled streets is going to make it more comfortable, and you're going to be more likely to keep it up.
Yeah, I think that's a really good advice. I kind of use that whenever I'm riding my bike in St. Pete. I kind of choose more residential streets, even though some other street may have a bike lane. I just don't feel safe like riding in that bike lane because it's not protected.
Right.
And yeah, and so that's a really good advice. And I think you mentioned it, but since you don't bike here, like I know seasonal changes may affect biking as well, right? Like I sweat a lot, and so in the summer, like I just choose when to bike and when not to bike. Even like when it's raining, like I just, I'm like, okay, I can't bike to this place, so I'll have to figure out like what other option do I have to get to the destination that I'm trying to get to. But biking is such a great option to commute. If it's a short enough distance that you can go to, but in Chicago, I know people who travel 8 miles to downtown on the Lakefront Trail because they can, and it's like an hour-long ride. And they're like, I don't need to like do any cardio because like I've done like my bit by biking up and down like this gorgeous trail. So yeah, I really wish we had like a better commuting system in Pinellas County for sure.
It's got potential for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, for the most part, it's, the weather here is conducive to biking year round. I mean, it does get very hot in the summer, but you don't have to bike through like, sleet and snow.
Yeah.
Which is maybe something you experienced up in Canada, right? Did it get to a point where it's too cold to bike at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I used to live in Saskatchewan, so that's
Oh yeah.
Chicago,
Yeah,
times
yeah.
two. So yeah, sometimes then I walk, because you work up, a bit of a, internal temperature when you're active. So yeah, in the dead of winter when I was walking to university, it was, you dress in layers, right? And so when I finally got to school, it was like after an hour of walking, I had all my layers peeled off. So it's amazing, active commuting is probably one of the best things you can do for yourself in terms of like self-care, saving money. Yeah, I love the lifestyle, and I really wish more people would embrace that here. Now, with the introduction of e-bikes, where if you choose not to sweat, I mean, you have the option to just use your torque or whatever. So, there's a lot more options now than there used to be in terms of getting around. We just need the infrastructure.
True.
So let's move on and talk a little bit more about the Suncoast World Day of Remembrance. Tell us a little bit about your journey in becoming an advocate for bicycle and pedestrian safety and such.
Well, like we've discussed, I was a huge bicycle commuter for the most of my life. And then I ended up getting married and moving to the United States. I immigrated to Los Angeles. And I don't know if either of you have ever been to Los Angeles, but it was a huge shock to me. I thought, woo, no winter, right? I can ride my bike. And it was
Oh, no.
devastating to me to move to such a car-centric environment. And the neighborhood that I lived in was fairly walkable in that it had close grocery stores and restaurants and bars within walking distance, but getting there was terrifying. The roads are so wide and, they're designed like highways, and it takes forever to cross. If I was in a wheelchair or mobility impaired, it's super dangerous. Like, I'm a fit person and I can navigate fine, but drivers are more aggressive, because these wide roads encourage people to speed. And so I was really saddened by my new surroundings. I thought, woohoo, I can ride everywhere. And I did, of course, because here's the funny thing, LA, I think Pinellas County is like LA 20 years ago, but LA has so much traffic, so much congestion that the cars can't really go that fast.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot easier and faster just to ride a bike there. And because they don't go fast, it's safer. So it's ironic. They've invested all this money into widening roads to accommodate more and more traffic, only just to, induce more traffic and get more congestion. So the pollution is bad, the traffic is bad. So I was, I lived in LA for like 5 years, and then we decided to move to Florida. And then I've heard, all the stories about Florida and how crazy it is or whatever. We moved to St. Pete because my husband's best friend lives in St. Pete. So we figured, all right, cool. We love the Gulf. We love the Pinellas Trail and the beaches. But it was really eye-opening. People here drive like their hair is on fire. Like it's crazy. They weave in and out of lanes. They tailgate. It's hostile, antisocial behavior. And at that point, my cycling career was pretty much done. I was like, I can't do this. I literally don't. And I kept reading in the news about, this pedestrian got killed, this cyclist got hurt, and I was like, I'm not doing it. I don't trust. First time I've ever had someone roll coal on me was the first year living in St. Pete. Have you ever had someone roll coal on you?
I haven't,
disgusting.
But it sounds terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, how is this legal? So it's like a culture. It was a huge culture shock to me. And I hate to say it, but Canada was a lot more civilized on the streets than Florida. And so I looked around and I'm like, okay, if nothing changes, this is just going to turn into another LA. Pinellas County is well on its way to becoming like a congested traffic hellhole. If it just keeps adding lanes, widening roads, making it easier to drive around, these things don't actually occur. All you do is you induce more traffic. And so I have an engineering background. I have a master's in public policy. I know these things. I've seen the evidence. I've lived it. I've learned it. I worked in climate change policy. And so, I know not only intuitively, but academically that it's just the wrong route to take for the future. And so when I heard about the World Day of Remembrance event, I said, okay, this is a great conversation starter, right? Here in Pinellas County, they talk about the lost time due to traffic congestion and how they need to add lanes and make it easier and invest all this money in software and stuff, traffic management systems. But what they don't talk about is the lost lives and the injuries and the property damage that comes from encouraging people to drive at unsafe speeds. And it's not just pedestrians and cyclists, it's other drivers. I've witnessed so many car crashes here, and I've never actually seen anything more than a fender bender back home in like Canada. It's insane to me. Like, things need to change, and it can be better because I've lived in better environments that are also, Canada was built to accommodate cars. It's not a European city that's, small and little, alleys everywhere, but they've done it in a way that accommodates all different road users. And transit is something that everybody enjoys. It's not just for poor people. It's not just for people who can't afford a car. It's just a great way to get around. And I think all of this put together, we need to really put pressure on our local leaders here to start making the right decisions.
Yeah, that's, and I think the inception of Car-Free St. Pete also began because of that. That idea that we need someone to kind of just talk about what other options there are than commuting with your car and just going everywhere with your car. I know I repeat this story a lot, but when we had like a neighborhood meeting, it was in our neighborhood, and people drove from their homes to where our neighborhood meeting was. And I just looked at them flabbergasted. I couldn't believe it that they couldn't walk like whatever those 5 or 8 minutes that would have taken them to walk across the neighborhood. And it was eye-opening for me that it's just an endemic problem of car dependency that is just so central to American life that like people can't even like look at any other option than what's like nearest to them. So um, how is Pinellas County honoring the World Day of Remembrance for road traffic victims this year?
Well, there's a small group of us, Safe Streets advocates, and also victims of road violence. So we're holding a ceremony on Treasure Island Beach at the Standing Ovation stage at 9 a.m. on November 19th.
Okay. And where can people find more information about it? Or is there like a website? Is there a Facebook event?
Yep, if you look on Facebook for Suncoast World Day of Remembrance, you should find it there. That's the event. There's a website. Let me just look up the website address. World Day of Remembrance, suncoast.org. So that's the website. Also, Forward Pinellas is promoting the event on their social media. So you can, go on their website or any of their social media and look at it there.
Okay, thank you so much, Laura.
You remind me that the Standing Ovations competition is coming up. So you are organizing this event in tandem with the I don't know if I can call it sandcastle building competition. I don't know if that's the appropriate sand sculpture competition.
Yeah.
That's really
so
cool.
Impressive. Those sand sculptures.
The stuff they do is just amazing. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Do you know what the theme is this year?
Nope. And I'm not here to promote that, but what I will say,
have a theme.
Yeah, no, you can go on Treasure Island's website. Treasure Island website will have all that information, but it was very convenient for us to hold the event there because they've already got a stage and all the equipment. So we'll be just commandeering their equipment for the first 2 hours of Sunday morning, and then they can have it back.
Yeah. Well, it's great because people can attend the World Day of Remembrance and then stroll around and see the sculptures that are being constructed. So there's a lot of incentive to come out there and take part in this.
Yeah, and the ceremony is going to be like people talking about their experiences, getting, into collisions, stuff like that, and the, absolutely devastating fallout it's had on their lives and their families' lives. There will be elected officials who will be there to talk about their efforts to make things safer. Treasure Island Mayor Tyler Payne will be there, and Florida Representative Lindsey Cross will also be there, among others.
So,
why is this ceremony important to you?
Well, I think it's really important to put a human face on the effects of dangerous roads. It's just an unacceptably high human cost of prioritizing driver convenience over safety, and we need to demand safer transportation systems. I think it's a lot harder to rationalize making decisions, about prioritizing driver convenience when you're faced with the real life fallout of poorly designed infrastructure. Like I said, transportation engineers love to talk about the societal cost of congestion, like that's a huge hardship on people, and we need to, throw millions and billions of dollars at relieving, their plight. But I've done the math, and nationwide, the human cost of traffic collisions in the United States is over 4 times what the theoretical cost is of lost time due to congestion. So, we need to demand our public officials actually look at the kinds of decisions they're making and take into account all of the information and make informed decisions based on evidence, not just how it feels. Because I get it, everybody feels like it's wrong to be stuck in traffic, and they feel like if we just added another lane, we'd be able to get to where we need to go and at whatever acceptable amount of time. But when you look at the actual human effects of those decisions, I think different decisions should be made.
Oh,
Just one more lane bro theory never works.
Right. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
Laura, are there any long-term goals to help making biking and walking safer in Pinellas County?
There
I know you're
are.
talking about percentages being there, but I was curious if you had any other thoughts.
Yeah, there are. I'm on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee for Pinellas County, well, Forward Pinellas. So we keep up to date on some of this stuff, and I can tell you it just can't come soon enough. It's such a long-term, it goes slow, but it's coming. Forward Pinellas did receive a grant from the Federal Safe Streets and Roads for All program to conduct safety studies on areas in like Gulfport, St. Pete, Dunedin, Largo, and Oldsmar. I wish it was every municipality, but it's a start. And then once they identify projects, they can go for more federal grant funds to implement those projects. St. Petersburg is doing great, at least downtown, right? It's got plans to improve several corridors, like Dr. Martin Luther King Street and 8th Street. Because they're in parts they're one way and they want to make those two-way, which has been shown to be safer and slows the traffic down, right? Just as an aside, it was insane to me when I realized that First Avenue north and south is like six lanes total, right? That's bigger than most highways. And so in my view, we've got so many urban highways that you could easily just take out a lane and put that into, dedicate that to bikes. Buses, love it. I love the Sunrunner. I want to see more things like that. Now, Forward Pinellas, let's talk about Gulf Boulevard. Forward Pinellas did just complete a safety study of Gulf Boulevard in Treasure Island and St. Pete Beach. Gulf Boulevard is an FDOT. It's Florida Department of Transportation. That's their responsibility. So they're going to need to sign off on these plans. So I'm here to encourage them to do so. Now, the recommendations, in my view, don't go far enough. There's no physical barrier between the cyclists and the traffic, but we have to start somewhere. And I think it's an iterative process. When I look back in the the news, and back in like 2012, I think it was, they had made plans to put a lot of those signalized pedestrian crossings across Gulf Boulevard. And there was this hue and cry raised by residents saying they wouldn't be able to get out of their driveways because of those, small little islands in the middle of Gulf Boulevard. Well, I don't think that's been an issue. So I feel like, it'll take some time for residents and visitors to get used to it, but we're moving in the right direction. But we can't just rely on government bureaucrats to make the right decisions. They do have to consider the feedback and perspective of community members. Forward Pinellas is right now soliciting feedback on their Advantage Pinellas plan, which is a long-range transportation plan. So I would encourage both of you and your listeners to go to advantagepinellas2050.org. So there's an interactive map where you can actually make suggestions for improvements yourself, and every piece of input that you provide, you'll actually be entered to win like a gift card and a raffle. So there's some incentive there.
That's exciting. That sounds like fun, actually.
Right?
AdvantagePinellas2050.org, you said?
Yep.
That I love playing with maps, so that sounds like a great just thing to work on. For sure. I know we also worked with Car-Free St. Pete, worked with City of St. Pete and Lime Bikes to figure out where we can put more docks for those bikes that are, mostly, because they are not everywhere, and like how we can improve just their usability by having more docks in areas that are not served by them. So which was also like a great activity for all of us to be involved in, for sure. And I know you have mentioned this before, but where can people learn more about the upcoming ceremony? We will also have those links in the episode description, and we'll also have the link that you just reiterated about the Forward Pinellas suggestion, the 2050 suggestions. That will also be in the description.
Yeah, so the website for the event is World Day of Remembrance, suncoast.org, all one word. And then on Facebook, you just search for Suncoast World Day of Remembrance, and it should come up for you. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
And thank you for all the work that you're doing. We need this kind of advocacy, in my opinion, and it's great that you are communicating a lot of these efforts. Like this Forward Pinellas interactive map that you described, it's so great because it is a really easy way for everybody to get involved and feel like they're contributing towards improving the area. So thank you for doing everything that you do.
You're welcome.
Also,
I enjoy it.
Have you heard of Bike Lane Uprising?
Have I heard of Bike Lane
Uprising?
Uprising?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so and so they highlight a lot of remembrance ceremonies. So
Okay.
it may be interesting to get in touch with them to say that we are doing this in Pinellas County, and they might be able to kind of blast it off to like whoever is using the app as well.
Okay, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll see you at the Suncoast World Day of Remembrance over on Treasure Island.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'll see you there.
All right. Bye.
Thanks.